Welcome to Module 2 for Florida ALFA's blended online and live core training. I'm Donna Crivero. I'm a registered nurse, I'm a core trainer, and I'll be presenting part of your online modules to you. Your core trainer who trains you live will follow up with any data that you need and also be able to answer any questions. Susan Tobin, who's our Membership and Education Director, is available by phone for questions or concerns. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any challenges or questions or just things you want to find out about before the live training. This is an overview of all the online modules that you'll take. So you should have completed Module 1, which is General License Activity. The second module is actual administration of an assisted living facility. Again, questions can be brought to class. If you need answers, please reach out to Florida ALFA and they'll be able to assist you with answers, or they'll connect you with a trainer who can assist you with your answers. Our goal: to teach students the administrative aspects of operating an assisted living facility, including fire safety and emergency planning. This is such an important part of what we do to make sure that we can evacuate and care for the residents who are under our care and custody while they're on our property. Administration of an assisted living facility, we will cover things like the definition, manager training requirements, fiscal responsibility, education requirements, background screening requirements. We'll also talk about adverse incidents and how to report them, your physical plant standards, building, code, space, temperature. Our residents many times are frail and get cold easily. They can also get overheated easily. So the temperature inside the building and also when we go on outings is very important to monitor and to attempt to maintain for their highest level of comfort and safety. Learner objectives. We do have a minimum limit of staffing standards of hours of direct care staff to residents, and we will discuss that both online and in class. From time to time, the facility may have a change in administrator. If you're going to change the person who's responsible for the day-to-day operations of your community, you need to notify ALFA within 10 days of the change of administrator. Manager requirements. If you're going to be away and are going to need someone to be the manager on duty while you're away, or if you happen to be the administrator of more than one community, a manager will be designated in writing. The manager needs to meet the same requirements as the administrator. That means the manager has been trained through the core training and has passed their ALFA administrator core exam. A manager on duty can be a supervisory team member that's managing or overseeing a shift. A designated manager in charge, again, must meet the same education and training requirements as the actual ALF administrator. One of our staffing requirements is that someone on each shift should be trained in first aid, CPR, and if you have more than 17 residents, the AED. This is a list of the in-service training courses that you may use in your community to meet ALFA's requirements. Whoever's going to do your training needs to be a qualified trainer in the topic, so please verify that the educator or trainer has the criteria and the background to be able to offer the appropriate training to your team. First aid and CPR. There are many providers in our state. Please make sure that your provider is an accredited college, vocational school, a licensed hospital, the American Red Cross, the American Heart Association, or National Safety Council, or a provider approved by the Department of Health. Many online courses will not satisfy this requirement, so make sure that your staff in their personnel files has an approved CPR and first aid card. One of the services we offer in assisted living is assistance with self-administered medication. That means that we have unlicensed but trained caregivers who assist our residents with taking their medications. There are specific training guidelines and there are specific manners in which our staff should assist. Please pay careful attention to this. The Extended Congregate Care Specialty License requires a minimum of core training. So before you take the ECC class, you must have completed core training. That does not mean that you have to have achieved success on the competency exam, but you must have your core training completed, and then you can take an Extended Congregate Care class, which lasts for 4 hours. This class will review with you the law and the rule about ECC, the specialty licenses, and how to care for the residents under your ECC program. Limited mental health is another of the specialty licenses. This requires 6 hours of additional education for your staff to be able to manage and assist residents with mental health diagnoses with their behaviors and their care. This training has recently become available online, so you should be able to access the 6-hour class online when you're ready to take that, or for your staff. Alzheimer's disease and related disorders is taught in a Level 1 and Level 2 class. The initial Level 1 class will be part of your online training. Level 1 class has certain requirements. We discuss behavior management, assistance with ADLs, activities, stress management for the caregiver, because both professional and personal family caregivers have stress. How do we manage that, and how do we adapt and maintain a positive environment for our resident? This training is required to be done by a qualified Alzheimer's disease or related disorders trainer. There's a website that all of our names are listed on. The curriculum for the training lasts for 3 years. Each curriculum must be approved, and on the certificate it will list the trainer's number and the curriculum number along with the curriculum's expiration date. One of the requirements for this training certificate is that you have a copy of the objectives that were covered with the training material. A simple way to provide this is on one side of the paper have the certificate, and on the back side of the paper you can list the objectives of the curriculum. This website will list core trainers. We're listed alphabetically. It also lists exam dates. Everyone who's core trained and has obtained their ALF administrator license must obtain 12 hours of continuing education every 2 years in subjects related to assisted living. Some of you may be nurses. If you're using continuing education to renew your nursing license, many of those topics can also be used for your ALF administrator license. Fiscal responsibility. Every business has to function in a fiscally responsible manner. That means we're responsible and accountable, in particular if we manage resident trust funds or any of the residents' funds. In some communities, the resident may have someone at the community as their representative payee. Most commonly, this is seen in mental health communities. If someone at the community is the representative payee or is responsible for receiving funds for the resident to manage their room and board and their spending money, we must have a surety bond on file, and that bond is on file and on hold in case someone does not manage the resident's money appropriately so that the monies can be replaced. Every community has to have liability insurance. This liability insurance protects you, it protects the resident, and it protects your business. The liability insurance is a requirement which we keep a file on site and also with ALFA to let them know that we are fully insured to be able to reimburse residents or to be able to recover from any concerns or issues. Communicable disease statement. Any new employee must provide within 30 days of employment a free from communicable disease statement. If the exam has been completed by their primary health care provider or other provider within 6 months of employment, we can use that statement. Our staff also needs to provide a documentation that they are free from tuberculosis. Sometimes the tuberculosis testing is done by the community. Most times it is done off-site at a primary care physician's office or at a service provider contracted with by the community. Minimum staffing requirements. Facilities must maintain the following minimum staff hours per week. For every 20 residents over 95, we add 42 staff hours per week. This is direct care staff. This does not include staff that is not providing direct care to your residents. One of the questions that ALFA will ask upon arrival in your community is how many direct staff hours that you have per week. One suggestion is to post that on your weekly schedule so that the number of direct care staff of hours is readily available and you're able to locate and give this information to the surveyor. Some of our communities have both independent and assisted living, and some communities also have skilled nursing and memory care. If your community has independent residents and they're living in the portion of the building that's licensed as your assisted living facility, we do not include those independent residents as part of the residents that we provide care for. So we do not include them in our direct care staff hours.
Kelly Mercer from Brookdale Senior Living, and also Jimmy Faye Griffin from the Sterling House, Brookdale Senior Living. And we're going to ask them a few questions today about how they got involved and why they enjoy being administrators of assisted living communities. So Kelly, tell us a little bit about your background and how you managed to get involved with the assisted living world.
I've always loved working with seniors and working with people in general. And so the opportunity to serve our seniors who have served our country in various aspects, be it in the military or in healthcare or any education, any field, was a great honor for me, and I jumped at the opportunity to help those individuals to live out their days in an active and peaceful and happy and safe environment. And I love being a part of that system and knowing that we're giving folks a good quality of life.
Well, I've been a director for 13 years, and I learned real quick what a joy it could be working with the senior citizens. They've taught me a lot through the years. Hopefully I'm a little wiser from working with them, and even with the challenges that take place, at the end of the day, I feel like I've served a good purpose in helping somebody out today.
Kelly, could you tell us a little bit? You're a pretty new administrator. You've been an administrator for a couple of years now, or a little over a year
and
now.
3 months.
Can you kind of walk us through the process, how that worked as far as going through your core training,
Sure.
and then, sitting for the exam, and then what you found out once you became an administrator at a community?
Sure. I took the core training certification program, so there was 2 days of online training followed by a couple of days in the classroom. And what I learned through that process was that there's so much more involved than what can be crammed into those 4 days. I mean, it's not just learning the state regulations and learning the procedures and those types of things, but it is a constant learning process, constant. So yeah, I took the 2 days online, 2 days in the classroom, and then took my test about a month later and studied. And although the course was very, very helpful, I think I could have spent 2 weeks in a classroom and still be learning things. And so it's a constant process. Even a year later, I've been certified for a little over a year, and I'm still learning every day new things and how to adapt different services we provide to meet the needs of the resident, but also how to utilize those regulations to meet the benefits and needs of the residents in our community.
And how about you, Jimmy Faye?
Well, I took the core training the old way. Was in class for a week. And like Kelly says, there's just such an overwhelming amount of information that you have to be able to do the job like it deserves to be done.
Well, we really appreciate it. We have one more question for you today. With all the good things must come some challenges as well. So if you could kind of give a little example of maybe what your day is like, or on any given day.
You want to go first?
I'll let you go.
Oh, you're so nice. Well, let me just share today what happened to me, and this is just a little example. I get to work this morning. We have plumbing that's not functioning in the kitchen, so we're trying to fix it. And the next thing I know, I have water coming through the roof because the gentleman working in the attic broke the water pipes. Then I have little residents coming to me to share with me important knowledge of how I need to run things just a little better.
That's great. What about you, Kelly?
Challenges. I think this is something that all executive directors experience as they get into the field, and I will echo, of course, what Jimmy Faye said. That sounds like a very similar day that I've had before myself. But something that I think is extremely important to know is that multitasking is a necessity. Being able to multitask. I mean, I thought I was good before, but my skills have improved tremendously in the last year because it's necessary. The phone's ringing, a family member comes in, a resident comes in. My community is actually memory care specific, and so not only do I have family issues and staffing issues that I have to deal with, but I have behavioral concerns and expressions that our residents make because they can't tell me they have a headache, so they exhibit those feelings in a different way. And so we become clinically minded in the sense of what can we do to help this resident through this process. So, I may have 4 different things going on at one time, and then a tour walks in. And my sales manager is out at a meeting, and so guess who gets to do the tour? You have to be able to multitask and have your hand in 4 different pots at one time, and be ready for anything. Well,
we've been in both of your communities this morning, and thank you both so much for letting us come in and film and meet your residents. It seems like home. It's so relaxing, and your staff are so wonderful. What do you do on a daily basis to recognize your staff and then also keep it such a home-like environment?
Well, my personal model has always been, I say thank you for everything. You know, every staff member, I can't necessarily always give them a, you know, a financial incentive or a physical, you know, thank you as far as, you know, maybe buying them lunch every day or something of that nature, but just thank you goes a long way, and letting them know, I'm so glad you came to work today, because I can't do your job and mine, honestly.
Right.
And so I always tell them, thank you for helping Miss Johnson with her meal today, or thank you so much for the ship. We had a lady who couldn't come in this morning, and thank you so much for coming to work today in her place. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you goes a long way.
I think what has helped me with the staff is they know that I'll never ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I know the same thing applies for Kelly. Everybody appreciates being acknowledged. I try to empower them, let them be as involved as is feasibly possible. If we've got a challenge that's going on, I get their input. How can you, what's your suggestions? And also always urge them to look ahead. What do they want to do? Do they want to improve themselves? Either maybe I might be talking to a future ED, executive director, and but it's thanking them, always acknowledging them. I make sure every day, every shift that I speak to every associate and treat them with the respect that I want to be treated with.
And that goes a really long way. You can sure tell it in your communities.
Thank
you
you,
ladies, so much today for your time.
Level 2 background screening is required for staff working with residents in these communities, so that pretty much encompasses all of your employees. If you have an outside vendor like a lawn service, something to that effect, those people are not providing direct care. So with your lawn service company or other outside providers, you will have a contract in place with what they're required to do and what you will pay them to do. But since they are not your direct care staff, you do not have to maintain level 2 background screens on site for those providers. Your level 2 background screen is good for up to 5 years. Anytime that you work at a community, your name will be listed on the employee roster. The level 2 background screen data goes through a clearinghouse. If your name is on a current employee roster and you have any disqualifying offense that occurs during the time that you're employed, an email will be sent to your administrator or human resources person to notify them of the disqualifying offense, and they will make the decision to remove you from direct patient care pending the outcome.
Background screening is very important in an assisted living community. Most of the individuals that are going to be working in the assisted living community are going to be required to have a level 2 background screen. A level 2 screen includes a state screening and a federal screening. So an individual's fingerprints will be checked with databases from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the FBI. When you do this, you're going to be working through the Agency for Healthcare Administration background screening unit. When you go to the agency's website, you will follow the instructions for completing a level 2 background screen from the website.
Background screening is required for licensees, administrators, financial officers, any person who has controlling interest if the agency has a reason to believe that a person has been convicted of a felony, anybody that has direct care with the resident, and that includes the maintenance director, the chef, any nurses, anybody that comes into contact on a regular basis with the resident should have a level 2 background screen.
Once a background screen is conducted through the Agency for Healthcare Administration background screening clearinghouse, the prints are retained in a digital format. So if there is a subsequent arrest, the employer will be notified immediately. Every 5 years, the prints have to be rescreened. You will also be notified by ALFA when that occurs.
So just for example, if one of your employees was arrested over the weekend for drinking and driving or for petty theft or something to that nature, by the time the administrator got back into their building on Monday morning, they would have received an email stating the arrest record and the violation to the background screen. And any kind of disqualifying offense for a background screen, he or she could apply for an exemption from the appropriate licensing agency. But for the most part, if there was a violation in their past that was a felony or serious offense, most likely that person will not be able to work in your community.
Other reporting is required for adverse incidents. There's an initial adverse incident report that's required within 1 business day after the incident occurs. A full report of the incident must be completed within 15 days of the incident. Reporting is required at the present time to be online through ALFA's website.
This is very important because, for example, if ALFA's website is down and you cannot report that online, they do require you to fax the report into ALFA. But even though that you fax it to them and their website is down, you are still required to go back and submit that report online through their website.
What is an adverse incident? An adverse incident is an event over which facility personnel could exercise control rather than as a result of the condition of the resident. For example, it's any event that results in death, brain or spinal damage, permanent disfigurement, a fracture or dislocation of the bones or joints, any condition that requires medical attention to which the resident has not given his or her consent, including a failure to honor advance directives, any condition that requires the transfer of the resident from the facility to a unit providing more acute care due to the incident rather than the resident's condition before the incident. That really means that if the resident had to be transferred to a hospital or something like that. An event that is reported to law enforcement or its personnel for investigation, or a resident elopement if the elopement places the resident at risk of harm or injury.
Other reporting requirements include any time during the 2-year licensure period. If you have any change in the following information, you must report it to the agency. If your insurance coverage changes or renewal in your insurance coverage, a bond renewal, change of the administrator, and there's a CHOW which we've talked about in this training, annual sanitation inspections done by the Department of Health, fire inspections, or anything that related to fire code changes that will require you to change in your community, and approval of revisions to your emergency management plans. Fiscal plant standards. For new facilities, fiscal plant standards for existing structures not previously licensed or those to be converted to an assisted living, as well as any kind of subsequent additions, maybe 50% more retrofitting, modifications, alterations, renovations, or refurbishing. They're required by the Department of Elder Affairs to adhere to certain building code and fire safety standards. You can see from this slide the below chapters are the fire safety standards. And let's just say one thing, in the statute and in the codes, the current codes, the Life Safety Code and the Fire Safety Code refer to the 1994 standards. That is correct. It's still in the statutes for the 1994 code. And the reason for that code is because the later editions of the codes have not been kind, you might say, to healthcare and assisted living communities.
Another thing to remember about physical plant standards is to remember that you must provide a safe living environment. The community must be free of hazards, and you must ensure that all the mechanical and electrical equipment are in proper and good working order. For instance, if your air conditioner is not working properly and maintaining the proper temperature, the Agency for Healthcare Administration and possibly the Department of Health will provide a licensure citation for that issue. Each resident has the option to bring much of their own furniture into their room in the community. They must have at least the following furnishings: a clean, comfortable bed, a closet or wardrobe space for hanging their clothes, a dresser, chest, or other furniture designed for storage of clothing or personal effects, a table or nightstand, and a comfortable chair if requested. The facility also must maintain master or duplicate keys to resident bedrooms. Emergency management plans. Each facility must prepare a written emergency management plan that's in accordance with the emergency management criteria for assisted living facilities, which is dated currently in 1995, and it's available at the website location referenced on the slide. The emergency management plan must address certain items that are as indicated and must be submitted to the local county emergency management agency for approval. Facility evacuations. The facility must evacuate the premises during or after an emergency, if so directed by the local emergency management agency. Your local fire department will come out and help you with evacuations, and each community should do practice evacuations at least twice a year. You may want to consider where the placement of your residence is in your building if you have a multi-story community. Residents in wheelchairs or with walkers may have a harder time evacuating than someone who is more mobile. What we mentioned a few minutes ago about the 1994 edition of the Fire and Life Safety Code is here on this slide. There has been some work in progress with the Fire Marshal's office in Tallahassee to revise these fire codes to a 2012 or 2015 edition. We will be working, Florida ALFA will be working with the Fire Marshal's office to decide which codes would be most appropriate for our communities moving forward.
Congratulations, you've completed Module 2 and you're well on your way into your online program.